welcome to my channel. My name is Oscar Mbira. I'm a certified program and project manager. In this video, I'm going to take you through the 4th episode of the lessons that I'm sharing with you, which I've gained through my experience as a project manager. I was able to implement successfully 15 projects. So that is why I have to share with you these lessons in this video. So let's get started. Lesson number 37. Don't over-engineer any solution in a project. So you're a project manager. You've received the requirements from the user, whether it's to construct a building, whether it's to develop a software, whether to construct a bridge. So what is very important from you as a project manager is to keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate anything. Use what is called fit-for-purpose solution. The advantage of doing that is you quickly start seeing results, and your user is going to be able to quickly start seeing results. Your customer is going to be able to quickly start seeing results. Your client is going to be able to quickly start seeing results. Sometimes I've seen in my career, most project managers, they make a mistake of trying to provide a perfect solution for what the client or the customer is asking for. Thereby, they end up exceeding what is required for the project. They might exceed in terms of time. They might exceed in terms of the budget, because they're trying to provide a very, very perfect solution. That cannot happen in a project environment. So just make sure you keep things very simple and straightforward. That will save you a lot in the project management field. Lesson number 38. You should always leverage Agile methodologies. The advantage of having the Agile methodology applied, you start seeing results quickly, and then you start fine-tuning the items as quickly as you can. But there are certain projects where it's not very easy to do the Agile approach, for example, in construction. But if you come to projects like software, it is very easy to apply the Agile methodology, because you can have your sprints, and then you come up with a specific product, maybe 20%, 50%, and then you have another sprint. It's incremental. So always try to implement or apply Agile methodologies in your project. That will save you a lot. I've learned that throughout my career. There are cases where we had to go for pure Agile. There are cases where we had to go for hybrid, which means we had both Agile and also the waterfall approach, which is the step-by-step approach. But at the end of the day, we managed to deliver the project. I hope you have enjoyed this video so far. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button so that you are the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. Lesson number 39. Always monitor your project with specific KPIs. Use specific performance measures for your project. For example, you can look at timeline, how to measure a timeline. It is very important also. In terms of overruns, you also need to measure that. In terms of the budget, you also need to measure that. But the basic way to measure this is through your baselines. Remember, you have your cost baseline, you have your timeline baseline or schedule plan baseline, you also have your milestone baselines, you also have your resource baseline, your technical baselines, your assumption baseline. All these baselines, you have to make sure that you measure them. They should form part of your performance measurement for the project. That is important for a project to be successful. Lesson number 40. Always document everything as a project manager, especially very important decisions. I'm not saying very minor, I'm saying very important decisions. So even if the decision was minor, even if the decision was major, always document everything in the project. It could be decisions, it could be guidance, it could be any change in activities, it could be change in the plan, it could be an increase in the risk. Anything that you see in the project, you must make sure that it's documented. This day and age, it's very easy to document some of these things. You can put everything in the cloud, anyone can access it, which means at any given point, any project member is able to access the latest documents, the latest versions of the documentation. So documentation of everything should be done in a project. We are not saying spend more time documenting, but we are saying in a summary, you should be able to document what was discussed, what transpired, if it was a meeting, what was agreed, what were the action items picked from there. So this day and age, it's also very easy to document. Now you have AI, which is also your partner in terms of recording the meeting proceedings. And also at the end of the meeting, it can also summarize for you. So that is that summary that I'm talking about. That summary you get from, for example, if it's Teams or it's Zoom, that summary you get from the meeting, you should keep it somewhere. Document it, enrich it, and then keep it somewhere. That is very important. Lesson number 41. Always integrate quality assurance. Most project managers, they make a mistake to think if they have compliance, if they've got audit teams, if they've got risk teams, therefore they think it's not necessary to have assurance. Quality assurance has got an advantage that you involve people who are not, in most cases, they're not part of the project. In most cases, they're not even part of the organization. So the advantage of bringing them in, you have a different view, very independent, and most of them are experienced quality assurance members. So once they join your project, they also add value in terms of the practice that you are putting in place, in terms of the activities that you are also implementing in the project. So quality assurance should always be integrated in your project. Whatever type of project you're doing, there is always a quality check that has to be done for the deliverables of the products that are coming out of that project. So quality assurance should be integrated as part of your project. That is a very important lesson that I've learned through my career. Almost every part of my project, I always make sure that I have at least a quality assurance person, someone who's going to see, or someone who's going to be the second eye to whatever I'm doing as a project manager, to whatever is happening in the project, to whatever deliverables being produced in the project. That is very important. Lesson number 42, adapt to any changing requirements. This is very important, especially in the software industry where I've spent the most part of my life. Requirements can change. There is no need as a project manager or as a project team to continue producing a deliverable or a product that is no longer valuable. For example, maybe a company was trying to introduce a new product, and due to some change in market conditions, they've decided to either improve the requirements or to totally change the initial requirements for the product. So as a project manager, you should be able to adapt to such scenarios. You should be able to change the direction in order to meet the requirements of the original project objectives or the refined project goals and objective. Lesson number 43. Always balance speed and quality. There are certain projects which are very tempting in such a way that you want to quickly finish, as compared to providing something that has got quality, that is going to help either the organization or even your client in terms of quality. So always try to find a balance between quality and also speed. At the same time, you might find you might not need quality, therefore speed has to be higher than quality. There are some cases where quality is more important than anything else, especially on the new products to the market. So you find it's better to slow down a bit on the speed and then progress very well in terms of quality. So as a project manager, each and every project, what I've learned from my experience, always to try to balance quality and speed. This is not just for the whole project. Quality and speed can also be balanced by each deliverable, by each and every product in the project, by each and every stage. So always make sure that as a project manager, you are pushing for a balance between quality and speed. Lesson number 44. Always prioritize effectively. A project might have so many tasks to be done, so many activities to be done, so many products to be produced, so many deliverables to be produced. So you need to make sure that you are taking the right priority for a task, you are taking the right priority for a product, you are taking the right priority also for your deliverables. So your priorities are very important. Don't spend more time on minor tasks, which maybe at the end of the results or at the end of the day, you are not able to see the effects quickly. There are certain tasks, if you start with them, it's going to be very easy to see the results. That is also very motivating, especially to the project team, or especially to the client, especially to your customer. So always try to make sure that you put all the tasks that you need to do in a project and always prioritize them, so that if there's any specific sequence that is going to have a bigger impact after some time, then you start with those tasks, complete them first, and then progress with the project. That is also good for the success of the project. Lesson number 45. Always make sure that you are addressing the technical debt. So for most people, they might want to understand, what does it mean to say a technical debt? A technical debt is the kind of activity that you are forced to do in future because of an oversight that you made during the technical analysis of the requirements of the project. So in most cases, the technical debt, you pay it by either redesigning, probably it's a product, or if it's software, you're also redesigning the software in order to meet the demands of the product in case of either upscaling or downscaling. So that is what is normally defined as a technical debt. So in a nutshell, a technical debt is the technical work that you're forced to do in future because of an oversight of the technical activities that you are going through or that you are taking as of today. So you pay that debt by either redesigning the efforts, either redesigning the product, or even redesigning all the processes and procedures that you followed during the first implementation of the project. So as a project manager, always interact with the technical guys, try to understand and appreciate that there is no technical debt you're going to be forced to pay in future. That is very important. If you can avoid it today, you can save a lot of money, and even your integrity is also very important in future. Lesson number 46. Always implement a robust testing strategy. Testing strategy is very important. Each and every product or deliverable that you produce in a project, it must go through a thorough testing. And how do you test? You need to agree early in the project what is going to be the entry criteria to test or the exit criteria after testing. So always make sure that you have a robust testing strategy for all the project deliverables, for all the project products. Whatever you're going to produce in the project, it must be thoroughly tested. So this applies to almost every industry. You must make sure that you have a robust testing strategy in place as a project manager. That is going to save your project, that is going to make your project successful. Lesson number 47. Always keep your documentation updated. Remember, on lesson number 40, we said you should always update your documentation. You should always create and document everything in the project. That is what we said in lesson number 40. So in this lesson, which is lesson number 47, we are saying you must always keep your documentation updated. If it is requirements, make sure they are updated. If it is a project plan, make sure it's updated. If it is the risk register, make sure it's updated. If it's a quality register, always make sure it's updated. That is what I've been using in my project. I always make sure that all the documentation that I have is always updated. At any given moment, you should be able to extract reports from there. You should be able to derive any reports from there because you are very sure the information that is there is up to date, and therefore it can be used for any further analysis. It can be used for any decision making. So always make sure that your documentation is updated at any given moment during the project. Lesson number 48. Always use data-driven decisions. What do we mean by that? As you start your project, you are baselining your project with the specific KPIs, specific figures in terms of cost, specific numbers in terms of resources. So that is at least a very important starting point for you to start collecting any data in the project. Assuming you have also managed to run the project for some months and there's a need to make adjustments, you also use the initial figures as your base guideline and then adjust accordingly. Say, for example, your time baseline was 6 months. But due to some unforeseen circumstances, we have seen it with COVID before. If it's due to some unforeseen circumstances, you now need to adjust your time. You adjust your time, keeping in mind that initially it was supposed to be, for example, 3 months or 6 months. So now your adjustment must make sure that you are also including part of the information, part of the progress, part of the activities that have already been accomplished or completed in the project. So always make sure that you are using data-driven decision in a project. Don't use any emotions in terms of making your decisions. Don't use any pressure from any stakeholders for you to make a decision. Always use data-driven decision in your project. That is very important. Lesson number 49. Always prioritize critical path activities. So for some people, they want to appreciate what is critical path. Critical path is the longest path in the project, which means at any given moment, if you disturb any of the activities or items in the critical path, you are most likely going to extend the project. So always make sure that any item, any activity, any product, anything that is supposed to be done and it's along the critical path line, make sure that it's always prioritized, which means you start with those activities, which means you need to start with those activities. You need to make sure those activities are completed. You need to make sure those activities are well resourced. Once you have done that, it means you have managed to lock all the activities which are going to extend your project. So always prioritize as a project manager, always prioritize critical path activities. I've done it in my project. It has helped me in my project. I'm sure it can also work in your project. As long as you're able to identify the critical path items, then you should be able to make sure that all those activities are catered for. If you want me to do an additional video on how to identify critical path, let me know in the comment section below. Lesson number 50. Always use Agile, especially when the requirements are very uncertain or they are very fluid. The advantage of Agile is you are able to go through a certain cycle. They call it sprint. You're supposed to go through a certain cycle. You start seeing results. You make adjustments as you go. You perfect whatever process that you have as you go. And also as the end product is coming out, end product or deliverable of the project is coming out, it becomes very easy for the beneficiary or the end user to start seeing results and even start making any required adjustments, which is very important. You might not even waste more time on documenting so many requirements, yet the user is most likely going to use 20 or 30% of those requirements. So in a project, always make sure that you apply Agile, especially when the requirements are fluid, especially when the requirements are uncertain, especially when the requirements are incomplete, especially when your customer or your client is quite unsure of the requirements. Make sure you always apply the Agile methodology. Make sure you always apply the Agile methodology in terms of delivering a project. That is very important. Lesson number 51. Test early and test often. I've seen so many project managers making this mistake. They want to work on the deliverables for a longer period, and then they want to come and test later. This is very risky. Assuming you spend 10 months making some product features, and then later on, you discover that these features, maybe 20% of them, they're not required by the project, they're not required by a client, they're not required by a customer. It will be very difficult and very costly to start going back again, rework or rebuild, and then you start testing. So as a project manager, I've learned that lesson. You should always test as early as possible and as often as possible. This gives you the room to make adjustments when it's to have time, or you're still within the tolerance of the project. Tolerance in terms of cost, tolerance in terms of time, also tolerance in terms of scope. So the moment you start testing early and also testing often, you avoid overruns, you also avoid unnecessary effort being put on features which probably they don't carry a lot of value, or they're not going to be used so often by the client, or they're not even required by the client. So that is very important to always make sure that is done. Lesson number 52. Always document as you go. Documentation in a project is very important. It's going to enable you to be able to make a reference in future. You're also going to be able to pick lessons learned for future projects or for improvement of some processes or methodology. So always try or always do the documentation as you go. Don't wait for the last minute scrambling of trying to document something. You might forget. You have been running a project for a year. You've been building features of a product for a year, and then all of a sudden you want to start documenting. There's a likelihood that you're going to miss so many features in terms of how they were applied, how they were actually configured within the project. So it is very important as a project manager that you do the documentation from the word go. From initiation, remember as a project manager, you're supposed to develop your even daily log from initiation. You're also supposed to create and develop your quality register. You're supposed to develop your risk register in the early days. So this is very, very important. Communication plan, you also need to do it early. So each and every activity that you do in a project, make sure you document it as you go. Don't wait for the last minute. Don't wait for the end of the project for you to start documentation. Start from the day one. Start from the beginning of the project all the way up to the project closure. That is what I've been applying all along. It's very helpful. It's going to help you. It's going to help the project. It's going to help the organization. So always make sure that you document as you go from the beginning. Lesson number 53. Always celebrate milestones. A milestone in a project is defined as an achievement that is very critical for the progress and the completion of the project. So each and every time you achieve a certain milestone, make sure you celebrate. Why do you have to celebrate? It also works as a psychological weapon to the project team as a whole. A milestone in such a way that it can boost their morale. It can also give people confidence that they are moving in the right direction. It can also give your project members the confidence that they are going to be able to complete the project. It's also going to give your members the confidence that they are doing the right thing and they are going to be able to achieve the intended goals and objectives of the project. We have reached the end of this video. If you want me to create any additional videos based on the lessons that we have discussed earlier, or you have got any specific questions or any clarification you might need based on this video, let me know in the comment section below.